29, 1999 is a day I'll never forget. That day changed my life forever. I was 9 years old, sitting in my living room, watching General Abdulsalami Abubakar hand over power to Olusegun Obasanjo. You see, Obasanjo was going to be Nigeria's first civilian president in 16 years. And up until that point, my only encounter with leadership had been a string of military dictatorships. I mean, Nigeria had a legacy of dictators long before I was born and up until my 9th year of life. To further complicate matters, Nigeria is a country of 250 ethnic groups, many of which were vying for ethnic domination, as a lot of them had been ingeniously excluded from positions of national leadership. So on that Saturday morning, May 29, 1999, as I sat on that colorful couch in our family living room on the 20th floor, watching the telly, I wondered to myself, what type of leader would it take to lead an environment with such a diverse group of people that didn't know or trust each other? This question would continue to eat at me as I grew older. And interestingly enough, a year after that, my dad's job as a diplomat began to take me and my family all over the world. I was 10 years old, and I suddenly realized that I would now be a minority everywhere that I went. This was the moment that sparked my interest in leadership. I wanted to know the answer to this question, what type of leader would it take to lead an environment with such a diverse group of people that didn't know or trust each other? And so as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, I went to international schools, I worked in international organizations, I even interviewed well over 200 people across all continents. That's not true, I didn't interview anyone from Antarctica. But it was in being in this environment that I found the answer to the question that had plagued me for so long, most of my life. The type of leader that it takes to lead an environment with a diverse group of people that didn't know or trust each other is an inclusive leader. And that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you about today. How to be an inclusive leader. But before I do that, allow me to make my case. If we look around us today, we recognize that the internet and migration patterns have influenced the way we do business today. The new markets that keep popping up every day are constantly influencing the decisions that we make today and will continue to influence the decisions that we make tomorrow. The United States government predicts that by 2055, non-Hispanic whites will be a minority in this country. The United Nations predicts that until 2025, 98% of the world's population growth will come from developing nations. The population of Europe is expected to drop from what used to be 25% of the world's total in 1900 to 7% in the next 50 years. Let's fast forward to 2050, and it'll be the dawning of a new era. Today's younger and diverse generations will have grown up, and they would have had their own sets of young and diverse children, some even grandchildren. So you see, the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of today, must know how to interact across all these differences. They must know how to communicate across boundaries. But my concern here today is a lot of people today don't seem to want to understand the other side. They don't seem to want to listen to others and see where other people are coming from. You see, a lot of people have reacted to the changes that I just mentioned in a very negative way. They've reacted out of fear and anger instead of love and understanding. But I believe that we can change that. I believe that we as a generation can move forward and alter the way that we approach leadership. I believe that we can do this by following what I like to call the DBCs. So D stands for defeating the supposed to syndrome. B stands for breaking down the Berlin walls that exist today. And C that stands for connecting in a digital age. So D, defeating the supposed to syndrome. What exactly is the supposed to syndrome? It's the idea that you're supposed to be a certain way because society tells you that that's how you're supposed to be. That's what you see on the papers, that's what you see out everywhere. So you're supposed to be that way. But the way to defeat the supposed to syndrome is by changing the narrative, being more aware of the environment, and telling your story. Inclusive leaders have the courage and the ability to talk about their imperfections and the imperfections around them. They live by the credo that if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. You see, talking about their imperfections makes them more relatable. Talking about the imperfections in the society around them makes them a symbol of hope. Oprah Winfrey made it okay to be vulnerable in public. Nelson Mandela made it okay to embrace those that have wronged us and to forgive. Beyonce showed us that when life gives us lemons, we can literally turn this lemon into lemonade. Now, some of you will get that reference, some of you might not. But regardless of what I was saying, these three were not only able to tell stories that connected people from all over the world, they were also able to tie to mission. Inclusive leaders must know how to articulate their mission in such a way that people will aspire to be part of that movement. They're also very self-aware. And I know one of our eloquent speakers talked about the importance of self-awareness. They're self-aware to understand that despite their best intentions, they are just at risk of having a conscious bias, just like everyone here is. And so they actively seek new knowledge, new ideas, and new people, so that they can propel themselves and their markets and their business forward. The second thing that inclusive leaders know how to do is break down the Berlin Walls that exist today. Now, when we think about the Berlin Walls, it was this tangible symbol of suppression during the Cold War. It symbolized a lack of freedom. It symbolized the divide between the capitalistic Western bloc and the communist Soviet bloc. Now, that wall came down in 1989, but I would argue that it's still very, very present today. It manifests itself in the form of prejudices and biases that affect us in an individual, group, and systemic level. This idea that my way is better than your way, I don't care what you have to say, is all around us. But the best way to defeat this idea is to develop our own culture intelligence. Understand that not everybody sees the world through our cultural frame of references. Not everybody interprets the world the way we do. We also need to understand how our own cultural assumptions influences others' behaviors towards us. We need to understand the value of the people that we're leading. And the best way to do this is by inviting them to every level of the conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the key to inclusion is engagement. And engagement takes actively seeking input. Inclusive leaders recognize this, and so they prioritize collaboration. A way that many of you and all of you watching on YouTube or sitting here can prioritize collaboration is by forming your own personal board of directors. Make sure that your board of directors consists of people that look very different from you, think very different from you, and are from very different parts of the world. Putting yourself in these environments allows you to approach problems from a macro and a micro level. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business person, that means making sure your mentors and your team members all come from different parts of the world, different departments, and they approach problems differently, because surrounding yourself in that environment, once again, will allow you to approach a particular business problem from many, many angles that you might not have been privy to before. If you're an online personality, you have an influence on several social media platforms. Recognize the power of that influence and actively seek to invite people in different countries so that you can get a new lens from their point of view in your industry. Inclusion really is about making the effort to make sure that the quietest person in your group understands that they have a voice. about making an effort to understand and let the person that feels the most different in your group understand that they belong. Start to do this and watch as those Berlin walls tumble and become bridges. Bridges to connect. See, connect in a digital age. You know, I like to call the internet the great equalizer. And what inclusive leaders recognize about this equalizer is that they can use it to bring people together instead of driving people apart. At any moment right now, many of you will be able to communicate with people with your smartphone that are not physically here. Many of you will be able to communicate with people, whether it's through Skype or Facebook, that are in completely different locations. Some of you might even be looking at your phones right now, Snapchatting or recording this. And research shows that that trend is only going to continue to go this way. According to Gartner, by 2020, anywhere between 26 billion to 50 billion devices will be connected to the internet. And that's much more than just laptops and cell phones. And so what inclusive leaders do with this information is create communities around people all over the world to create communities that have people with common interests. They use this information to tell stories about hidden figures that people might not have otherwise been known. They use this information to disrupt structural systems, whether it's education and government, to let us know about what's been happening in history and what can happen in the future if we come together. Earlier today, I expressed the fact that we all view the world through different lenses. We all interpret the world in our own way. And as I stand here today, I want to implore you all to try a few things. Challenge your own assumptions. Acknowledge individuals. Embrace the differences around you and translate them into innovation and creativity. Inclusion is making sure that everybody actually means everybody. We're at a crossroads here when we talk about leadership in the 21st century. And I'm an eternal optimist that does listen to Beyonce, as I said that earlier. As an eternal optimist, I believe that this generation can change the way we approach leadership. And I believe that one day we can bring East and West together and have them sit next to North and South so that they can exchange stories of adventures and experiences. I believe that we can replace discrimination with appreciation and introduce them to connection. I believe that we can learn more about each other and embrace our global identities, and we can identify the beauty in being different. Defeat the supposed to syndrome. Break down the Berlin walls that exist today. Connect in a digital age. And watch as you begin to use your difference to make a difference. Thank you very much.